Businessman sees homeless man in wheelchair feeding his son and does the unthinkable. Michael Anderson felt his world collapsing when he saw that scene in the central square of Miami. His son Ethan, just 5 years old, had been missing for 3 days after disappearing during a party at the club, and the entire city was searching for the child. There he was, sitting on the ground beside a man in a wheelchair, sharing what seemed to be the last piece of bread the homeless man had. Ethan was still wearing the same navy blue suit he had on when he vanished, now dirty and wrinkled. The older man, with a graying beard and a worn-out wool cap, held an improvised bowl as he offered small pieces of food to the child with the tenderness of a grandfather caring for his grandson. Michael froze behind a tree, watching the scene unfold as if it were unreal. His heart pounded erratically as he tried to process what he was seeing. The homeless man wasn't just feeding Ethan, he was speaking softly to him, making the boy smile for the first time in days. "See, little one? When we share what we have, there's always a little joy left for us too," the man said in a rough but gentle voice. Ethan chewed slowly, as if trying to make the moment last forever. His bright blue eyes, just like his father's, shone with a peace Michael hadn't seen in a long time. "Uncle Walter, will you be okay without eating?" Ethan asked with the innocence of his age. "Ah, my boy, when we take care of those in need, God always finds a way to take care of us too." "You don't need to worry about that," Walter replied, running his hand affectionately through the child's blonde hair. Tears streamed down Michael's face. Over the past 3 days, he had mobilized the most expensive security firm in the area, offered million-dollar rewards, and even hired a helicopter for the search. Meanwhile, a man who seemingly had nothing had found his son and protected him with the little he possessed. The businessman stepped forward slowly, trying to control the emotions swelling in his chest. Walter was the first to notice his presence and instinctively moved his arm in front of Ethan as if shielding him. "Ethan!" Michael called out, his voice trembling. The child looked up quickly, his eyes filling with tears. "Daddy!" he shouted, running toward his father. Michael dropped to his knees and hugged his son with all his strength, breathing in the familiar scent of the boy's hair mixed with the smell of the streets. For several minutes, father and son held each other in silence, while Walter watched with a faint smile on his lips. "My boy, my sweet boy, are you okay? Are you hurt?" Michael asked, checking Ethan from head to toe. "I'm okay, Dad. Uncle Walter took care of me. He told me beautiful stories and gave me food when I was hungry. He's really kind," Ethan replied, looking at the man in the wheelchair with admiration. Michael finally turned his attention to Walter, who remained silent, observing the reunion. The homeless man had deep, piercing eyes, and Michael could see an intelligence in them that didn't match his apparent circumstances. I don't know how to thank you," Michael began, still holding Ethan in his arms. "You saved my son. You saved my family." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, continuing. Walter moved his wheelchair forward slightly and extended his hand to Michael. "No need to thank me. Anyone would do the same," he said simply. Michael shook the man's calloused hand and felt a strange energy, as if that handshake meant far more than just a greeting. "No, that's not true. Not everyone would do this." "You took care of my son as if he were your own grandson," insisted Michael. "Please let me repay you somehow. I have the means to—" "I don't want money," Walter interrupted firmly. "Looking after Ethan was a joy for me. It's been a long time since I had such good company." Ethan wriggled free from his father's arms and ran to Walter. "Uncle, are you leaving now?" he asked, his eyes brimming with tears. "Oh, little one, I live right here in the square. Whenever you want to see me, just come here," Walter replied, gently stroking the boy's face. "Dad, can I visit Uncle Walter, please?" Ethan begged. Michael hesitated. His first instinct was to say no. After all, he knew nothing about this man. But at the same time, he saw the genuine affection between his son and the homeless man, something he himself rarely managed to show, caught up in the rush of work. "We'll talk about this at home, okay?" he answered diplomatically. On the way home, Ethan wouldn't stop talking about Walter. He told stories Walter had shared, how he knew the names of all the birds in the square, how he made shadow puppets on the wall to distract the boy at night. "Dad, why does Uncle Walter live on the street?" Ethan suddenly asked. Michael didn't know how to respond. How could he explain to a 5-year-old the complexities of adult life, social injustices, the circumstances that could leave someone homeless? "Sometimes people go through hard times, son, and sometimes those times last longer than we'd like," he tried to explain. "But he's so smart, Dad. He knows stories about kings and queens, about animals, about the stars. How can someone so smart not have a home?" The question echoed in Michael's mind all night. When they arrived home, his wife Jennifer was waiting in the living room, her eyes red from crying. "Ethan, my boy!" she cried, rushing to hug him. Jennifer was an elegant 42-year-old woman, always impeccably dressed and made up. She came from a traditional Greenwich family and had married Michael more for social convenience than love. In recent years, their marriage had become more of a partnership than a loving union. "Where did you find him?" Jennifer asked, examining Ethan as if searching for injuries. Michael recounted the encounter in the square, how Walter had cared for Ethan during the 3 days he was missing. Jennifer listened with growing discomfort. "A homeless man?" "Michael, do you realize what could have happened?" she said, pulling Ethan away to inspect him further. "Jennifer, he saved our son. He looked after him when Ethan was lost and scared," Michael defended. "And you think that's normal? A stranger taking our child? We need to call the police. This could have been kidnapping, Michael." "Mom, Uncle Walter didn't hurt me. He's good," Ethan interjected. "You don't understand any of this, Ethan. Go to your room now," Jennifer ordered sharply. Ethan looked at his father pleadingly, but Michael gestured for him to obey. The boy trudged upstairs, clearly upset. "Michael, we need to talk," Jennifer said when they were alone. They sat in the luxurious living room of their South Beach apartment. The walls were adorned with expensive paintings and the furniture was all imported. Michael glanced around and, for the first time, wondered if all that luxury really meant anything. "Jennifer, I know you're worried, but..." "Worried? Michael, I'm terrified. Our son spent 3 days with a complete stranger, a homeless man. You have no idea what could have happened to him," Jennifer interrupted. "I saw them together, Jennifer. I saw how calm Ethan was, how the man cared for him. There was nothing wrong with that scene. How can you be so sure? Ethan is just a child, Michael. He doesn't understand when he's being manipulated or when he's in danger." Michael let out a deep sigh. He knew Jennifer had her reasons to be worried, but he also couldn't forget the image of Walter sharing his last piece of bread with Ethan. "I'm going to look into this man," Jennifer declared. "I'll hire a private investigator to find out who he is, where he came from, why he's on the streets." "Jennifer, is that really necessary?" "Of course it's necessary. Michael, we have a social standing. We have responsibilities. We can't just accept that a homeless man had close contact with our son without knowing who he is." Michael stayed silent. Part of him agreed with Jennifer. After all, Ethan's safety was the priority. But another part of him was bothered by the prejudiced way she spoke about Walter. The next morning, Michael woke up early and decided to go back to the square before heading to the office. He wanted to talk to Walter again, to understand more about the man who had taken such good care of his son. He found Walter in the same spot, sitting under a leafy tree reading a newspaper someone had left on a nearby bench. When he saw Michael approaching, the homeless man smiled. "Good morning. How's Ethan?" "He's fine. He woke up asking if he could come see you," Michael replied, sitting on a nearby bench. "He's a special boy. Has a beautiful curiosity about the world," Walter remarked. "Can I ask you something?" Michael hesitated. "Have you always lived on the streets?" Walter folded the newspaper carefully before answering. "No, not always." Michael waited for him to continue, but Walter stayed silent, watching the movement in the square. "Do you have family?" Michael pressed. "Everyone has family one way or another," Walter answered cryptically. At that moment, Michael realized Walter wasn't just any homeless man. There was something in the way he spoke, in the posture he kept even in his wheelchair, in the way he chose his words. This man had education, had culture. "Walter, I'd like to help you in some way. I could get you a place to stay, maybe a job. Why do you want to help me?" Walter asked, looking directly at Michael. The question caught Michael off guard. Why did he really want to help? Was it gratitude for Walter taking care of Ethan? Was it guilt for having so much while this man seemingly had nothing? Or was it something deeper? Because you did for my son what I couldn't do myself, Michael admitted after a few seconds of silence. And what was that? You were there when he needed someone. You protected him, took care of him, made him feel safe. I was so busy with work that I didn't even realize he'd left the party until 2 hours later. Walter nodded slowly as if he understood exactly what Michael was feeling. Having money doesn't make anyone a better or worse father, he said gently. What matters is being there when our children need us. But I wasn't there. You were. And now you're here talking to me, trying to understand what happened. That's being there too. Michael felt a lump in his throat. Over the last few years, his life had become a constant race for more money, more recognition, more success. He'd lost sight of what truly mattered. Walter, can I ask how you ended up here? This time Walter took longer to answer. Michael could see an internal struggle playing out on the older man's face. Life has many turns, Michael. Sometimes, when we least expect it, one of those turns takes us to places we never imagined, he finally said. But you can leave this place. I can help you. And why do you think I want to leave? The question left Michael speechless. How could anyone want to live on the streets? Well, I imagine anyone would like to have a home, a job, a more comfortable life. Comfortable like yours? Walter asked with a half smile. Michael was left speechless. Was his life truly comfortable? He had a mansion, expensive cars, a hefty bank account, but was he happy? Did he feel fulfilled? Are you happy, Michael? Walter asked, as if reading his thoughts. Michael started to automatically say yes, but the words died in his throat. I don't know. At least you're honest. Most people in your position would say yes without even thinking. Just then, Michael's phone rang. It was his assistant, reminding him of an important meeting. Real life was calling, demanding his attention. I have to go, Michael said, standing up from the bench. Of course, thanks for the talk. Walter, I'll come back, and I'll bring Ethan to see you if he wants to. He'll always be welcome here. Michael left the square with more questions than answers. Throughout his workday, he couldn't focus on the meetings, the contracts, or the numbers that usually consumed him. His mind kept drifting back to his conversation with Walter. When he got home that evening, Ethan ran to greet him at the door. Dad, did you see Uncle Walter today? I did, son. He sent his regards. Can I go see him tomorrow, please? Michael looked at Jennifer, who was coming down the stairs with a disapproving expression. Ethan, we've talked about this. You can't just go off to see people we don't know, Jennifer said firmly. But Mom, Uncle Walter is my friend. Ethan, you're 5. You don't understand these things yet. The child started to cry, and Michael felt his heart break. He knelt in front of his son and hugged him. Ethan, how about if tomorrow is Saturday and we all go see Uncle Walter together? You, me, and Mom? Jennifer opened her mouth to protest, but Michael stopped her with a firm look. Jennifer, we need to meet the man who took care of our son. It's the right thing to do. That night, after Ethan went to sleep, Michael and Jennifer had a long talk. Jennifer had contacted a private investigator and already had some preliminary information about Walter. His name is Walter Thompson Reed, 63 years old, no criminal record, no history of issues with minors, Jennifer said, reading from a report. But that's all we have so far. See? There's nothing wrong with him, Michael said. Michael, you're being naive. Just because he doesn't have a record doesn't mean we can fully trust him. Jennifer, he took care of Ethan for 3 days. If he wanted to harm him, he would have already. Or maybe he's waiting for the right moment. Maybe he knows who you are, knows you have money, and is planning some kind of scam. Michael sighed. Jennifer's suspicion wasn't entirely unfounded. He was indeed a wealthy and public figure, and it wouldn't be the first time someone tried to take advantage of that. But something about Walter told him the man wasn't interested in money. Tomorrow we'll go together and get to know him better, Michael decided. Then we can make a more informed decision about whether Ethan can visit him. On Saturday morning, the Anderson family left early for the square. Ethan was ecstatic, bouncing with joy in the back seat, while Jennifer remained tense and watchful. They found Walter feeding breadcrumbs to some pigeons. When he saw Ethan, his face lit up with a genuine smile. "Ethan! So good to see you, champ!" "Uncle Walter!" Ethan shouted, running to hug the man. Michael watched Jennifer's reaction as she saw the closeness between her son and the homeless man. She remained stiff, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "Walter, this is my wife, Jennifer," Michael introduced. Walter extended his hand to Jennifer, who hesitated for a moment before shaking it. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Jennifer. Ethan talks about you a lot." "Really? And what does he say?" Jennifer asked coldly. "That you make the best chocolate cake in the world and that you read him stories before bed," Walter replied sincerely. Jennifer looked visibly surprised. She had perhaps expected criticism or negative comments, not praise. "Uncle Walter, can you tell Mommy that story about the birds?" Ethan asked. "Of course, champ. Mrs. Jennifer, did you know that kingbirds are very territorial birds? They defend their space with great courage, even when the intruder is much bigger than them." And so Walter began telling a story about the birds in the square, captivating everyone with his detailed and knowledgeable narration. Michael watched Jennifer, seeing her expression gradually shift from distrust to curiosity. "How do you know so much about birds?" Jennifer asked when the story ended. "When you live outdoors, you learn to observe nature. And when you don't have a TV or the internet, you learn to find entertainment in simple things," Walter replied. "But you seem to have a formal education." "Did you study somewhere?" Jennifer pressed. Michael felt the tension in the air. Jennifer was beginning her interrogation. Walter stayed silent for a moment, watching Ethan play with the pigeons. "We all study, Mrs. Jennifer. Some in schools, others in life. The important thing is never to stop learning." Once again, Walter had skillfully dodged the direct question. Michael was starting to suspect there was much more to this man's story than he was willing to share. They spent about 2 hours in the square. Ethan played, listened to more stories, and even taught Walter a song he'd learned at school. Jennifer gradually let her guard down, impressed by the patience and affection Walter showed the child. When it was time to leave, Ethan grew sad. "Uncle Walter, can I come back tomorrow?" "Ethan, tomorrow is Sunday. It's family day," Jennifer said. "But Uncle Walter is part of our family now," Ethan declared, with the innocence typical of children. Michael and Jennifer exchanged glances. Their son's words had struck something deep in both of them. "Ethan, how about we come back next week?" Michael suggested. "Promise, Dad." "I promise." On the way home, Jennifer was quiet, clearly processing what had happened. "He's not what I expected," she finally admitted. "What did you expect?" Michael asked. "I don't know. Someone more rough, maybe. Someone who actually seemed dangerous, but he's polite, smart, affectionate with Ethan." "So you're more at ease about the visits?" "I'm less worried, but I still want to find out more about him. There's something in his story he's not telling." Michael agreed. He too felt Walter was hiding something, but his gut told him it was nothing dangerous. That night, as he put Ethan to bed, Michael asked, "Son, what do you like most about Uncle Walter?" Ethan thought for a moment before answering, "He listens to me, Dad. When I say something, he stops whatever he's doing and really listens. Dad, he's never in a hurry." His son's words hit Michael like a punch to the gut. When was the last time he had truly stopped to listen to Ethan? When was the last time he had given his son his full attention without thinking about work or his phone? On Monday, Michael arrived at the office with his mind still occupied by the weekend's events. His company, Anderson Builders, was one of the largest in the Southeast, with projects in several cities. Michael had built his empire from scratch, working 12, sometimes 14 hours a day. His secretary, Dorothy, a woman in her 50s who had worked with him for over a decade, noticed he seemed different. "Mr. Anderson, are you all right? You seem worried about something." Michael trusted Dorothy. She was efficient, discreet, and kind-hearted. He decided to tell her about his encounter with Walter. "Dorothy, do you believe that sometimes the most unlikely people can teach us the most important lessons?" "Of course, sir. My grandmother used to say that God speaks through the simplest people because their hearts are more open." Michael smiled. Dorothy always had a unique perspective. Could you do me a favor, quietly, without drawing attention? I'd like you to find out more about a man named Walter Thompson Reed. He's around 63 and currently lives in Liberty Square. Of course, sir. May I ask why? Michael briefly explained Ethan's disappearance and how Walter had cared for the boy. Dorothy listened carefully, taking notes. Sir, with all due respect, have you considered that this might not be a coincidence? How so? An educated, intelligent man living on the streets, right in the square where your son turns up lost, and he cares for the child so tenderly? Sometimes things happen for a reason. Michael hadn't thought of it that way. Was there something providential about Ethan and Walter's meeting? Over the following days, Michael returned to the square several times to talk with Walter. Each conversation revealed more of the older man's wisdom and knowledge. They spoke about books, philosophy, life. Michael realized he hadn't had such enriching conversations in years. Walter always deflected when questions got too personal about his past, but gradually small details emerged. He had been a professor. He'd lost the use of his legs in an accident. He'd gone through hardships that led him to the streets. Walter, can I ask you something directly? Michael said during one visit. Of course. Why won't you accept my help? I could get you an apartment, a job, medical treatment. Walter stayed silent for a long time, watching the square. Michael, there are things in my life you don't understand. Accepting your help would complicate things for many people, including you. What kind of complications? The kind best left in the past. Michael felt he was close to something important, but respected the boundary Walter had set. That afternoon, when he returned to the office, Dorothy was waiting with information. Mr. Anderson, I found some things about Mr. Reed, she said, handing him printed pages. What did you find? He really was a professor, a university professor, actually. He taught at the University of Florida for over 20 years. He specialized in American literature and had a PhD. Michael took the papers and began reading. There were copies of academic articles Walter had written, photos of university events where he'd been a speaker. Dorothy, how old are these records? The most recent ones are from about 10 years ago. After that, his name disappears completely from academic records. And family, does he have any? A daughter, Rachel Thompson. She's 35 now, an architect living in New York. I couldn't find any records of a wife. Michael examined the information with growing curiosity. What had happened 10 years ago that made a respected professor end up living on the streets? Dorothy, can you try reaching out to his daughter? I already tried, Doctor. She didn't want to talk about her father. Said it's a very painful subject for her. This puzzled Michael even more. Clearly, there was a complex story behind Walter's situation. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. That evening during dinner, Ethan asked when they could visit Walter again. Jennifer, who had spent the week processing her experience at the square, surprised Michael with her answer. Ethan, how about we invite Uncle Walter over for dinner this Saturday? Michael nearly choked on his food. He hadn't expected Jennifer to take the initiative. Really, Mom? Uncle Walter can have dinner here? Ethan asked excitedly. We can try, Jennifer replied, looking at Michael. If he accepts, of course. Jennifer, are you sure? Michael asked. Michael, if this man is going to be part of Ethan's life, I want to get to know him better, and I think he deserves a decent meal. Michael smiled. He was seeing a side of Jennifer he hadn't seen in a long time, a more human, compassionate side. The next day, Michael went to the square with the invitation. He found Walter reading a book someone had left on a bench. Walter, my family would like to invite you to dinner at our place this Saturday. Would you accept? Walter closed the book and looked at Michael in surprise. Michael, I appreciate the invitation, but I don't think it's a good idea. Why not? Look at me, Michael. Look at how I'm dressed, how I smell. Your wife has a beautiful home. She probably hosts important people. I wouldn't fit in there. Walter, you saved my son. You mean more to our family than any businessman or politician who's ever dined with us. It's not that, Michael. It's just, Our worlds are so different. So what? Ethan doesn't see a difference. To him, you're simply someone he loves and admires. Walter fell silent, clearly moved by Michael's words. And Jennifer? Does she really want this? It was her idea. After a few minutes of thought, Walter agreed to come, but on one condition. He wanted to contribute something to the dinner. Walter, you don't have to... Michael, if I'm going to be your guest, I want to bring something. It's a matter of dignity. Michael understood and respected Walter's wish. They agreed he would bring a simple dessert, something he could prepare with the few resources he had. On Saturday afternoon, Michael picked Walter up from the square. The man had done his best to clean up, wearing clothes he'd managed to find somewhere. He carried a bag with ingredients to make a sweet treat. Walter, my kitchen is yours if you'd like to prepare the dessert there, Michael offered. On the way to the house, Michael noticed Walter was nervous. It was understandable. He was stepping out of his familiar world into one that was completely different. When they arrived at the gated community where Michael lived, Walter was taken aback by the luxury. The houses were enormous, with well-kept gardens and expensive cars in the driveways. Michael, are you sure your family won't feel awkward having me here? Walter, my home is yours tonight. Jennifer greeted Walter at the door with a warm smile. She had prepared a special dinner, and the table was set with the family's best china. Ethan ran to hug Walter as soon as he saw him. Uncle Walter, you really came. Come see my room. Easy, Ethan, Jennifer interjected. Let Uncle Walter settle in first. Michael gave Walter a tour of the house, and Walter was amazed by its size and decor. There were expensive paintings on the walls, fine wooden furniture, and a pool in the backyard. Michael, all of this is very beautiful, commented Walter. Thank you. It took me many years to build all of this. And are you happy here? The question caught Michael off guard again. It was the second time Walter had questioned his happiness. Why do you always ask me that? Because sometimes people forget to ask themselves that. They get so busy building the life they think they should have that they never stop to consider whether the life they actually have truly satisfies them. While preparing dessert in the kitchen, Jennifer watched Walter work. He moved with precision and skill like someone who knew exactly what he was doing. Walter, where did you learn to cook like this? Jennifer asked. My mother taught me when I was a boy. She said a man who knows how to cook will never go hungry and will always have something to offer guests. Is your mother still alive? Walter stopped stirring the batter for a moment. No, she passed away 15 years ago. I'm so sorry. She had a good life. She worked as a housekeeper her whole life, but she always kept her dignity and joy. She taught me that no matter what happens in life, we can always choose how to respond to circumstances. Jennifer was moved by the way Walter spoke of his mother. There was genuine love and respect in his voice. Dinner was surprisingly pleasant. Walter behaved like a perfect gentleman, pulling out Jennifer's chair, waiting for everyone to serve themselves before eating, and keeping the conversation lively with interesting topics. Ethan couldn't take his eyes off Walter, clearly proud to have his special friend dining at their home. Uncle Walter, tell my parents that story about the trickster spirit, Ethan asked. Ethan, maybe after dinner, Jennifer suggested. No, it's all right, Walter said. Do you know the real story of the trickster? And so Walter began telling a version of the legend that Michael had never heard before, one filled with meaning and lessons about facing life's mischief with wisdom and humor. Jennifer was visibly enchanted by the way Walter narrated the tale, captivating everyone with his expressive voice and careful gestures. Walter, have you ever thought of writing these stories down? Jennifer asked. I used to write, Walter answered vaguely. What kind of things? Academic articles mostly, some newspaper columns. Michael and Jennifer exchanged glances. Walter had revealed another piece of his past. After dinner, they moved to the living room. Ethan settled into Walter's lap as the man told more stories. Michael watched the scene with a mix of joy and melancholy. Joy at seeing his son so happy, melancholy at realizing how rarely he himself could provide such moments of pure attention and affection for Ethan. Walter, Jennifer said during a lull in the conversation, may I ask you a personal question? Of course. Do you have children? Michael saw a shadow pass over Walter's face. "I have a daughter. Does she know where you are?" Walter was silent for a long time. Ethan had fallen asleep in his arms, and he absent-mindedly stroked the boy's hair. "It's complicated," he said finally. "All family relationships are complicated," Jennifer said gently. "Some are more complicated than others." Michael sensed they were nearing the heart of Walter's story, but also knew pressing further wouldn't be helpful. The man would share when he was ready. When it was time to take Walter back to the square, Ethan woke up and grew sad. "Uncle Walter, can't you stay here tonight?" "No, champ. I have my home at the square, remember? But it's uncomfortable there. Here you'd have a soft bed." "Ethan, some people feel at home in palaces, and others feel at home under the stars. What matters is knowing where your heart finds peace." Michael was impressed by the wisdom Walter conveyed, even in simple conversations with a child. On the way back, Walter thanked him for the wonderful evening. "Michael, your family is special. Ethan is an extraordinary child, and Jennifer is a smart and kind-hearted woman. Thank you, and thank you for coming. It did us all a lot of good. Michael, may I give you some advice?" "Of course. Don't let work consume all your time. Ethan is growing up fast, and these family moments are precious. One day you'll wake up, and he'll be an adult, and you'll regret not making the most of his childhood." Walter's words echoed in Michael's mind all through the following week. He began rethinking his priorities, coming home earlier, spending more time with Ethan, having deeper conversations with Jennifer. Jennifer had also been deeply affected by Walter's visit. She started questioning some of her own prejudices and values. During her conversations with her friends from the club, she realized how often they were superficial and based solely on appearances and social status. A week later, Michael received an unexpected call at his office. It was from a woman who introduced herself as Rachel Thompson. "Mr. Anderson, I heard through some people that you've been in contact with my father, Walter Thompson Reed." Michael was surprised. How had she found out? "Yes, it's true. Your father, he looked after my son when he was lost. I'd like to talk to you in person if possible. There are things about my father you need to know." Michael arranged to meet Rachel the next day. He was curious, yet uneasy about what she had to say. Rachel arrived at Michael's office promptly. She was an elegant woman in her mid-30s with features that resembled Walter's, especially the dark, intelligent eyes. She wore a business suit and carried a document folder. "Mr. Anderson, thank you for seeing me," she said, shaking Michael's hand. "Please call me Michael, and thank you for coming. I'm curious to learn more about your father." Rachel settled into the chair across from Michael's desk and took a deep breath before speaking. "Michael, my father isn't just an ordinary homeless man. In truth, his situation is far more complicated than it seems. I already discovered he was a university professor. Yes, but there's much more. My father was one of the most respected professors at UF. He had a PhD in literature, had written 3 books, and was considered an authority in his field." Michael waited for her to continue. 10 years ago, something happened that destroyed his life. And it was my fault. This revelation surprised Michael. "How so?" Rachel opened the folder and took out some documents. "My father was always very principled, very upright. When I was in college, I got involved with the wrong crowd. I started using drugs, skipping classes, getting into trouble." She paused, visibly emotional at the memories. "One day things got serious. I owed money to dealers and was being threatened. My father found out and did everything to help me. He used his savings, borrowed money, took out loans, but that's what any father would do. The problem was it wasn't enough. I kept using drugs, kept getting into worse trouble. And my father kept trying to save me, spending money he didn't have." Michael began to see where this was leading. He ended up in debt. Worse than that. In desperation to get the money I needed, he did something terrible. He falsified documents at the university, misused research funds. He was caught and prosecuted. Michael felt a tightness in his chest. He was starting to understand the complexity of Walter's situation. Was he arrested? He wasn't actually arrested, But he lost his job, his pension, everything. His name was publicly tarnished. All the newspapers covered the scandal. A respected university professor involved in corruption. And you? I was in a rehab clinic at the time. When I got out and found out what had happened, I couldn't handle the guilt. My father had destroyed his own life trying to save mine. Rachel began to cry. I ran away, Michael. I moved to New York, changed my name, rebuilt my life from scratch, and I abandoned my father just when he needed me the most. Michael offered Rachel a tissue and waited for her to compose herself. For these 10 years, I tried to convince myself it was better this way, that I'd only bring him more trouble. But the truth is, I was a coward. I couldn't face the guilt. And how did you find out I was in contact with him? I've had a private detective looking for him for 2 years. When I finally worked up the courage to try to see him again, I found out he was living on the streets. The detective told me a local businessman had been visiting him regularly. Michael processed all the information Rachel had shared. Walter's story was even more tragic than he'd imagined. Rachel, your father never mentioned you to me. I mean, he said he had a daughter, but he never went into details. He must be so angry with me, and he has every right to be. Actually, it didn't seem like anger. It seemed more like sadness, longing, maybe. Rachel looked up, hopeful. Do you think he'd forgive me? Rachel, in our conversations, your father always showed great wisdom and compassion. I think he'd understand that you were also a victim of circumstance. Michael, I want to see him. I want to ask for forgiveness. I want to try to rebuild our relationship, and I want to help him get off the streets. That might be more complicated than you think. Why? Michael told her about his attempts to help Walter and how he always refused. He said accepting help would complicate a lot of people's lives. Now I understand what he meant. He doesn't want to drag anyone into his problems. Rachel grew thoughtful. Michael, can you take me to see him? I can, but I think you should be prepared. It might be a shock to see him in his current situation. I need to do this. I can't live with this guilt any longer. Michael arranged to meet her the next day at the square. He'd spend the night thinking about the best way to approach the situation with Walter. That evening at dinner, Michael told Jennifer about Rachel's visit. Ethan overheard part of the conversation. Dad, Uncle Walter has a daughter? Why did he never tell me about her? He asked. Sometimes adults go through complicated problems, son, but maybe tomorrow they can work things out. Will Uncle Walter be happy to see his daughter? I hope so, Ethan. The next morning, Michael picked Rachel up from her hotel. She was visibly nervous, changing clothes several times, fussing over her hair. Rachel, are you ready? I don't know if I'll ever be ready, but I can't put this off any longer. On the way to the square, Rachel shared more details about her life now. She'd become a successful architect in New York, was married, had a stable life, but she always felt an emptiness, a guilt she couldn't shake. Michael, how do you think I should approach him? Be honest. Walter is a smart man. He'll know if you're not being sincere. When they reached the square, they found Walter in his usual spot, reading a newspaper. Michael approached first. Good morning, Walter. Hey, Michael, you're early today. Walter, I brought someone who'd really like to see you. Walter looked up from the newspaper and saw Rachel standing a few feet behind Michael. His expression changed completely. The newspaper fell from his hands. Rachel, he said softly, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Hi, Dad, Rachel replied, tears streaming down her face. For a few moments, father and daughter stood silently, just looking at each other. Michael could feel the emotion in the air and decided to step back to give them privacy. You've grown, Walter finally said. Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for everything. Rachel moved closer and knelt in front of her father's wheelchair. Dad, I ruined your life. Because of me, you lost everything. Walter reached out and touched his daughter's face. Rachel, you're my daughter. I'd do it all again if I had to. But Dad, you lost your job. your reputation, everything because of me. And are you okay now? Are you clean? Are you happy? I am, Dad. I've been clean for 8 years. I have a career, a husband, a good life. Then it was worth it. Michael watched the scene from a distance, moved by their reunion. He noticed several people in the square had also noticed what was happening and were discreetly watching. Dad, why did you never try to find me? I did, sweetheart, but you'd changed your name, your city, and I thought maybe it was better that way, that you were rebuilding your life away from the problems I caused. You didn't cause any problems, Dad. I did, and I ran away like a coward when you needed me most. Walter held his daughter's hands. Rachel, you were a young woman fighting an addiction. You weren't in any condition to take care of me back then. You needed to take care of yourself first. But Dad, look where you are now, living on the streets with nothing to eat. Rachel, I survived, and I found things here on the streets I didn't know existed. What things? Simplicity, peace, the ability to help others without expecting anything in return. Michael stepped closer again. He could see Walter was emotional, but he also noticed a serenity in him that was striking. Dad, Rachel said, I want you to come with me to New York. I have a big house, I can take care of you. We can rebuild our relationship. Walter stayed silent, looking around the square. Sweetheart, I appreciate the offer, but my life is here now. What do you mean, Dad? You can't possibly want to keep living like this. Rachel, I found purpose here. I help lost people. I look after kids who wander off. I talk to other homeless folks who need someone to listen to their problems. Michael remembered Dorothy's words about how Walter had helped so many children over the years. Dad, but you can do that in other ways. You could work with non-profits, social projects. And who says I can't do that right here? Walter's question made Michael and Rachel pause. Walter, Michael interjected, what are you saying? Michael, during these weeks of talking, you've made me realize that maybe I can turn my experience into something bigger, something that could help others. How? There are plenty of businessmen like you, Michael, people who've succeeded financially but lost touch with what really matters. And there are plenty of people like me who've lost everything but learned valuable lessons along the way. Michael began to understand where Walter was going. Are you thinking of some kind of social project? I'm thinking of a bridge, a way to connect those two worlds, not as charity, but as mutual education. Rachel looked at her father with growing admiration. She was seeing in him a wisdom and vision that hadn't been there before his fall. Dad, that's beautiful. But you don't have to keep living on the streets to do that. Rachel, if I leave the streets, I lose my credibility. The people who live here won't trust me anymore, and the people in your world won't take me seriously if I'm well-dressed and living in a comfortable home. Michael was impressed by Walter's clarity. He had truly thought through every aspect of the situation. Walter, but there are ways to improve your quality of life without compromising your work. How? Michael thought quickly. An idea was forming in his mind. What if we created a center? A place that could serve as a bridge between the two worlds you mentioned. You could live there, work there, but still maintain direct contact with the people on the street. Walter grew interested. Go on. We could create a space where business leaders could come to learn about empathy and social responsibility, not through theoretical lectures, but through direct contact with people who faced real hardships. And at the same time, Rachel added, catching on, it would be a place where vulnerable people could receive support, not just material, but emotional and educational. Exactly, Michael said. Walter, you'd be the bridge. Your experience in both worlds makes you perfect for this. Walter fell silent for a long moment, processing the proposal. Would this really work? He finally asked. There's only one way to find out, Michael replied. Just then, Ethan came running across the square. It was Saturday, and Jennifer had brought the boy to visit Walter. Uncle Walter, Ethan shouted, running to hug him. Ethan, what a wonderful surprise. Uncle, who's this pretty lady? Ethan asked, looking at Rachel. Ethan, this is my daughter, Rachel. Your daughter? Wow, you have a beautiful daughter, Uncle Walter. Rachel smiled, touched by the child's spontaneity. And you must be the famous Ethan my dad talks about so much. He talks about me? Ethan asked, surprised. He does. He says you're a very special boy. Jennifer approached and was introduced to Rachel. The two women greeted each other warmly. Jennifer, Michael said, Rachel is an architect. I was thinking she could help us design that center we discussed. Jennifer looked confused. What center? Michael quickly explained the idea that had come up in their conversation. Jennifer listened with growing interest. Michael, this is a wonderful idea, she said. So many people could benefit from a project like this. Mom, is Uncle Walter getting a new house? Ethan asked. Maybe, sweetheart, but it would be a special house, one where he could help a lot of people. Ethan was excited by the possibility. They spent the rest of the morning discussing the project's details. Rachel, with her architecture experience, began sketching ideas for the physical space. Michael, with his business background, considered the administrative and financial aspects. Jennifer, with her social work experience, contributed ideas for programs and activities. Walter watched it all with a mix of emotion and disbelief. In just a few hours, his life had completely changed. His daughter had returned, he'd rediscovered a purpose, and now there was a chance to turn his painful experiences into something meaningful. Are you all sure this can work? Walter asked. Dad, Rachel said, if there's one thing I've learned in life, it's that the best ideas come from the hardest moments. You went through all of this for a reason. Maybe this is it. Michael nodded. Walter, you taught me there's more to life than money and professional success. Now it's time to share that wisdom with others. Can I help too? Ethan asked. Of course you can, champ, Walter replied. You can be our official consultant on how to treat kids. Ethan beamed at the responsibility. That afternoon, they all went to Michael's house to continue planning the project. Walter accepted the invitation to stay for dinner again, and this time, Rachel also stayed. During dinner, Rachel shared more about her life in New York, how she had rebuilt everything from scratch and how she had always missed her father. Dad, there's something I need to tell you, Rachel said during dessert. What is it, sweetheart? You're going to be a grandfather. The table fell completely silent. Walter was speechless for a few seconds. A grandfather, he repeated as if he hadn't understood. I'm 3 months pregnant. It's a boy. Walter began to cry, tears of joy, emotion, a happiness he hadn't felt in a long time. A grandson, he murmured. I'm going to have a grandson. And if you want, he can grow up knowing his grandfather, Rachel said, holding her father's hand. Ethan, who had been watching the scene, was thrilled. Uncle Walter is going to be a grandpa. That's so cool. Can I play with the baby when he's born? Of course you can, Ethan, Rachel replied with a smile. Michael observed the scene with a mix of joy and reflection. He was seeing how life could take unexpected turns, how moments of pain could transform into moments of intense happiness. That night, after Walter and Rachel had left, Michael talked to Jennifer about everything that had happened. Jennifer, do you realize how much our lives have changed since we found Walter? How so? We're closer as a family. Ethan is happier. We're having deeper conversations. And now we have a project that could really make a difference in so many people's lives. Jennifer agreed. Michael, I'll admit I was scared at first. I didn't know Walter. I didn't understand why you were getting so involved with him. But now I see he's brought something very special into our lives. What do you think he brought? Perspective. He helped us see what really matters. In the following days, Michael, Jennifer, Walter, and Rachel worked intensely on planning the center. They decided to call it the Human Connection Center. The idea was to create a space where people from different social backgrounds could interact in meaningful ways. There would be reverse mentoring programs where people who had overcome extreme hardships would teach resilience to stressed executives. There would be life skills workshops where successful professionals would share practical knowledge with those in vulnerable situations. Rachel designed an innovative architectural plan. The center would have open spaces to encourage interaction, gardens where people could connect with nature, and multi-purpose rooms for various activities. Michael used his business connections to secure financial support. He discovered that many of his fellow entrepreneurs were interested in participating in genuine social projects, not just as a marketing strategy, but as a way to find more meaning in their own lives. Jennifer organized volunteer groups and began structuring the educational programs that would be offered. Walter became the project's general coordinator, using his experience in both academia and life on the streets to design programs that truly met people's needs. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 3 months later, the Human Connection Center was ready to open. It was a beautiful, functional space, located in a neighborhood easily accessible to both middle-class families and those experiencing homelessness. The opening was an emotional event. Business owners, university professors, homeless individuals, local politicians, journalists, and entire families were all in attendance. Ethan, now 6 years old, insisted on cutting the ribbon at the inauguration alongside Walter. "Uncle Walter, I'm proud of you," Ethan said during the ceremony. "And I'm proud of you too, champ. You taught me that age doesn't matter when the heart is big." The center's first program was a success. Michael participated in a session where executives spent an entire day experiencing the reality of homelessness. It was a transformative experience. "Walter," Michael said at the end of the day, "this was more impactful than any leadership course I've ever taken." Empathy isn't learned from books, Michael. It's learned by living. Rachel moved from New York to Miami to be closer to her father and help at the center. She and her husband, a young lawyer, decided to rebuild their lives in her hometown. "Dad," Rachel said one day, "thank you for forgiving me." "Sweetheart, there was nothing to forgive. You were sick, fighting something bigger than yourself. What matters is you got better and are here now." "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you regret anything?" Walter thought for a moment. "I regret not realizing sooner that you were struggling. I regret not seeking professional help when I saw the first signs, but I don't regret doing everything I could to save you, even knowing it cost you your career." "Rachel, my career was important, but you're my daughter. No career in the world is worth more than a child's life." The center's first months were full of learning. There were challenges, conflicts, moments of doubt, but there were also beautiful stories of transformation. An executive who participated in the program decided to completely change how he led his company, implementing more humane and inclusive practices. A homeless woman who attended skill workshops found a job and a place to live. Several business owners became regular mentors, forming genuine relationships with people they'd met at the center. Ethan visited regularly and became a sort of mascot for the place. His joy and spontaneity helped break barriers between people from different worlds. "Dad," Ethan said to Michael one day, "Uncle Walter was right." "Right about what?" "When we share what we have, there's always a little joy left for us too." Michael smiled. His son was learning lessons it had taken him 40 years to understand. 6 months after the opening, the center received an unexpected visit. It was the dean of the University of Florida, accompanied by several professors. "Professor Walter," the dean said, "we'd like to speak with you." Walter was surprised. He hadn't been called professor in a long time. "How can I help you?" "Professor, we're here to offer an official apology from the university." Walter was confused. "What do you mean?" "Professor, we recently uncovered new documents related to your case. Documents that prove you were wrongly accused." Michael, who was present at the meeting, felt his heart race. "What did you find?" The dean opened a folder and showed some papers. "We discovered there was a conspiracy against Professor Walter. A colleague with whom he'd had academic disagreements fabricated evidence to frame him." Walter turned pale. "Fabricated evidence?" "Yes, Professor. He forged your signature on fraudulent contracts, manipulated financial records, all to damage you professionally." "And how did you find this out?" "The person responsible got cancer and decided to confess his crimes before he died. He left a detailed letter explaining everything he'd done." Michael held Walter's hand, visibly shaken by the revelation. "Professor," continued the university president, "the university would like to make amends for the mistake. We want to reinstate you to the faculty, pay all back wages, and publicly clear your name." Walter remained silent for a long time. "What about my pension?" he finally asked. "It will be fully restored, with all retroactive benefits." Michael was elated, but he noticed Walter didn't seem as happy as he'd expected. "Walter, this is wonderful. Your reputation will be cleared. You'll get your life back." "Michael, I'm not sure I want my old life back." Everyone was surprised by his response. "Professor," said the president, "you don't understand. You can return to teaching, to research, to the recognition you deserve. What about the center? What about the people who depend on the work we're doing here?" Michael understood Walter's dilemma. He had found a new purpose, a new identity. Returning to his old life would mean abandoning everything he'd built. "Walter," Michael said, "you don't have to choose between one or the other." "What do you mean?" "You can accept reinstatement and use your academic position to give the center's work more credibility. Imagine the impact we could have with the university's official support." Walter's eyes lit up. "You mean partnering the university with the center?" "Exactly. Creating outreach programs, developing research on social inclusion, training a new generation of socially conscious professionals." The president grew interested in the proposal. "Professor Walter, this would be groundbreaking. The university would be very interested in such a project." Just then, Rachel arrived at the center, her belly noticeably large. She was 7 months pregnant. "Dad, what's going on here?" she asked, seeing the serious gathering. Walter told her about the president's visit and the conspiracy that had ruined his career. Rachel began to cry. "Dad, does this mean you were innocent all along?" "It means I was a victim of injustice, but I don't regret the path it led me down." "How can you not regret it? You lost everything over something you didn't even do." "Rachel, if I hadn't lost everything, I might never have learned what truly matters in life. I might never have met Michael and his family. We might never have created this center, and you might never have found the strength to recover and rebuild your life." Michael admired Walter's wisdom. Even after discovering he'd been wronged, he could see the good in the experience. "Professor," the president said, "how about we organize a public ceremony to clear your name, and we can announce the partnership between the university and the center." Walter looked at Michael, at Rachel, at the people from the center who had gathered upon hearing the conversation. "I'll only accept if it's a celebration of everything we've built together, not just making up for the past." "Agreed," said Michael. "Let's celebrate the future, not just correct the past." The ceremony was scheduled for a month later. During that time, news of Walter's innocence spread through the city. Several newspapers ran stories about his journey, the center, and his path from the streets back to academic respectability. Ethan was thrilled when he heard there would be a party for Uncle Walter. "Dad, can I give a speech at the party?" "A speech? About what?" "About how special Uncle Walter is." Michael smiled. "Of course you can, son." On the day of the ceremony, the university auditorium was packed. Local officials, professors, students, business leaders, homeless individuals, and entire families, touched by the center's work, were all in attendance. Walter entered the auditorium in his wheelchair, wearing a new suit that Rachel had bought for him. By his side walked Michael, Jennifer, Ethan, and Rachel. The dean gave a speech offering an official apology for the injustice committed against Walter. Then he announced the partnership between the university and the Human Connection Center. When it was Walter's turn to speak, he approached the microphone with calm. "My friends," he began, "10 years ago my life fell apart. I lost my job, my reputation, my dignity. I ended up living on the streets, depending on the kindness of others to survive." The audience listened in complete silence. "Today, I discovered I was the victim of an injustice. That my downfall wasn't the result of my mistakes, but of someone else's cruelty. You might expect me to be angry, to want revenge." Walter paused, looking at the crowd. "But I'm not angry, I'm grateful." A murmur spread through the auditorium. "I'm grateful because it was on the streets that I learned the most important lessons of my life. It was there I discovered that true wealth isn't in what we have, but in what we're able to give. It was there I met extraordinary people who taught me about courage, generosity, and dignity." Michael felt a lump in his throat as he listened to Walter's words. And it was through that experience that I met a wonderful family. Walter looked at Michael, Jennifer, and Ethan, who took me in not as a charity case but as a true friend. It was through that pain that my daughter, he glanced at Rachel, found the strength to face her own demons and come home. And it was through all of this that the Human Connection Center was born, a place where people from different worlds can learn from one another. The audience began to applaud, but Walter gestured for them to wait. I accept the university's apology, and I accept returning to this institution I love so much. But I come back with a different purpose. I'm not just returning to teach literature, I'm returning to teach life. To show that it's possible to turn pain into growth, injustice into opportunity, and downfall into rebirth. The applause was loud and long. Many in the audience were crying. And now, Walter said, I'd like to invite someone very special to the stage, someone who has something important to say. Ethan stood up and walked to the microphone. Michael had to adjust it so the child could speak. Hi, everyone, Ethan said in his small voice. I'm Ethan, and Uncle Walter is my best friend. The audience smiled at the child's sincerity. When I got lost, Uncle Walter found me and took care of me. He shared his food with me, told me stories so I wouldn't be scared, and taught me something really important. Ethan paused, trying to remember the right words. He taught me that when we share what we have, there's always a little bit of happiness left for us too. And now all of you came here to share Uncle Walter's happiness. So today everyone gets to go home with a little extra happiness. The applause was deafening. Walter was moved to tears. After the ceremony, there was a celebration in the university courtyard. People from all walks of life talked, laughed, and shared stories. It was exactly the vision Walter had for the center, a place where differences became bridges, not walls. Rachel approached her father during the celebration. Dad, I'm so proud of you. And I'm proud of you, sweetheart. You've become an incredible woman. Dad, I have a surprise for you. What surprise? I've already chosen the baby's name. What name? Walter Michael Thompson Reed, in honor of his grandfather and the man who brought us back together. Walter was deeply touched. Michael, who overheard the conversation, also felt honored. Rachel, you didn't have to. Yes, I did, Michael. You saved our family just as much as we saved yours. The celebration lasted late into the night. When it was finally time to leave, Walter said goodbye to everyone with a smile on his face. Michael, Walter said, thank you for everything. Thank you for what? You're the one who taught us so much. Thank you for seeing more in me than just a homeless man, for believing I had something to offer. Walter, I only saw what was already there. You've always been special, with or without a degree, with or without a home. 2 months later, Rachel gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Little Walter Michael was born in the same hospital where Ethan had been born years earlier. Ethan, now 6.5, was enchanted by the baby. Uncle Walter, he's so tiny, Ethan said when he met his friend's grandson. We all start out small, Ethan. What matters is growing up with love and wisdom. Can I help take care of him? Of course you can. You can be the big brother he doesn't have. The Human Connection Center became a national model. People from different cities came to learn about the project and create similar centers in their communities. Walter returned to teaching at the university, but his classes were different now. His courses combined academic theory with life experience. Students did fieldwork at the center, learning about social responsibility not from books, but through direct contact with reality. Michael transformed his company, implementing more humane and socially responsible practices. His employees had flexible schedules, so they could dedicate more time to their families, and the company allocated part of its profits to social projects. Jennifer discovered she was a natural educator. She began coordinating the center's educational programs and found fulfillment in the work she never knew existed. Ethan grew up with a sharp social awareness, always ready to help those in need. At school, he was known as the boy who never left anyone out of games. A year after the center opened, Michael reflected on everything that had happened. He sat in the square where it all began, watching people pass by. Walter approached in his wheelchair. "Thinking about life?" Walter asked. "Thinking about how much things have changed," Michael replied. For the better. Definitely for the better. You know, Walter, before I met you, I thought I had everything in life. A big house, an expensive car, a hefty bank account. But the truth is, I had nothing. How so? I didn't have a real connection with my family. I had no purpose beyond making money. I didn't have true friends. I didn't have inner peace. And now? Now I have all of that. And paradoxically, I have less money because I give part of it to the center and other social projects, but I feel richer than ever. Walter smiled. Michael, you've learned one of life's most important lessons, which is that true wealth isn't measured by what we accumulate, but by what we share. Not by what we have, but by what we're able to give. At that moment, Ethan came running across the square, followed by Jennifer carrying little Walter Michael in her arms. Rachel was right behind them, her face radiant. Dad! Michael! Rachel called out. I have news. What news? They both asked at the same time. The center has been selected for an International Social Innovation Award. Ethan jumped for joy. Are we going on a trip, Uncle Walter? Are we going to get the award? We're all going together, champ, Walter replied, as a family. Michael looked around and saw his extended family. Jennifer and Ethan, Walter and Rachel, little Walter Michael. He also saw some homeless people who had come over to greet them, center staff who had stepped out for lunch, children playing in the square who would run to hug Walter whenever they saw him. You're right, Walter, said Michael. We really are a family, a big, diverse family, but a real one. And you know the best part? Walter asked. What? This family will only keep growing. Every person who comes through the center, every life we touch, every heart we change becomes part of this family. Ethan, who had been listening, walked up to Walter. Uncle Walter, can I ask you something? Of course, champ. If you could go back in time and change everything that happened to you, would you? The question caught Walter off guard. He thought for a moment. Ethan, that's a tough one. I suffered a lot, lost a lot, went through terrible times. But would you change it? No, Ethan. I wouldn't change a thing, because if I did, maybe we wouldn't have met. Maybe I wouldn't have learned the lessons I did. Maybe the center wouldn't exist. Maybe your family wouldn't be as close as it is today. So you're happy with everything that happened? I'm grateful for everything that happened, Ethan, and there's a difference between being happy and being grateful. Happiness comes and goes, but gratitude lasts forever. Jennifer joined the group, still holding the baby. Walter, can I ask you something personal? Of course, Jennifer. What was the hardest moment in this whole journey? Walter thought carefully before answering. The first night on the streets, when I realized I'd lost everything, that I had nowhere to go, that I didn't know how I'd survive. That night, for the first time in my life, I thought maybe it'd be better to give up. What stopped you? A child. Everyone was surprised. A child? Yes. That first night, I was sitting on a bench in the square, lost in my dark thoughts, when a little girl, about 7, came up to me. She was with her mom, coming back from somewhere. Walter paused, reliving the memory. The girl let go of her mom's hand and walked over to me. She said, "Mister, are you sad?" I said yes. Then she took a piece of candy from her pocket and gave it to me. When I'm sad, my mum gives me candy. Candy makes everything better, she said. Then what? Her mum was embarrassed, apologized, took her daughter and left. But I held on to that candy, thinking, if a child who didn't know me could show such kindness, maybe there was still good in the world. Maybe it was still worth going on. Michael was moved by the story. Did you eat the candy? No. I kept it for weeks until it went bad. But whenever I felt despair, I'd look at it and remember there were good people in the world. Ethan ran to Walter and hugged him. Uncle Walter, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. How so, champ? I want to help people who are sad. I want to give candy to those who need it. Walter kissed Ethan's forehead. Ethan, you already do. Every time you smile at someone, every time you're kind, every time you treat people with care, you're giving candy to those who need it. Rachel, who had been listening, approached with the baby. Dad, I want my son to grow up hearing these stories. I want him to learn early that life can be hard, but it's always worth living. He'll learn, sweetheart, because he'll have you. He'll have this whole family to teach him." Just then, Dorothy, Michael's secretary, appeared in the square looking for them. "Dr. Anderson, sorry to interrupt, but there's an urgent call at the office." Michael looked concerned. "What kind of call?" "It's from national television. They want to do a story about the center. They say your story is moving the entire country." Michael looked at Walter. "What do you think?" "I think our story isn't ours, Michael. It belongs to all the people who can find inspiration in it to transform their own lives. So, should we accept?" "We'll accept, but with one condition." "What is it?" "I want the focus of the report to be on the center and the work we do, not my personal story. What matters isn't what happened to me, but what we can do together to help others." Michael completely agreed. The report aired 3 weeks later and had a nationwide impact. Hundreds of people called offering help, wanting to create similar centers in their cities, or simply thanking them for the inspiration. One of the most touching calls came from a woman in Washington, D.C. about, "Dr. Walter," the woman said over the phone, "my name is Mary Williams. I saw the report about you and wanted to share something." "Go ahead, Mrs. Mary." "My husband lost his job 6 months ago and fell into deep depression. Last night he told me he no longer saw meaning in life. I didn't know what to do." Walter grew alert. "And then?" "Then we watched the report on TV. My husband saw your story, how you lost everything and managed to rebuild your life even better. This morning, for the first time in months, he got up and said, 'Mary, I'm going to overcome this.'" Walter was moved. "Mrs. Mary, give me your phone number. I want to speak with your husband personally." "Really? You'd do that?" "Of course. That's why we exist." This was the first of hundreds of similar calls. Walter began dedicating several hours a day to talking with people in crisis, offering support and guidance. Michael saw they needed to expand their work. "Walter, how about creating a remote assistance program? Video conferences, online support groups? Great idea, that way we can help people who can't come here." Rachel suggested writing a book with the stories and lessons learned at the center. "Dad, you could write a book sharing everything we've learned. It would be a way to help even more people." "I don't know if I'm a good writer, sweetheart." "Dad, you're a literature professor, and besides, you have the best stories in the world to tell." Jennifer supported the idea. "Walter, I can help with the organizational part. We can create a schedule, divide the work." Ethan also wanted to participate. "Uncle Walter, can I help with the illustrations? I'm good at drawing." "Of course you can, champ. Your illustrations will make the book even more special." And so another project of the extended family was born, a book that would tell not just Walter's story, but the stories of all the people who had passed through the center. The book took a year to complete. During the process, Michael discovered he had a talent for writing. Jennifer revealed organizational skills she didn't know she had. Ethan created beautiful drawings that captured the essence of the stories. Rachel used her design knowledge to create a beautiful and functional layout. Walter oversaw the entire process, ensuring each story was told with respect and dignity. The book launch was a landmark event. The entire community that had formed around the center attended. There were business owners, homeless individuals, university professors, students, whole families. "My friends," Walter said during the launch, "this book isn't mine. It's ours. It belongs to every person who shared their story, who allowed themselves to be vulnerable, who believed it was possible to turn pain into growth." The book became a bestseller, but more importantly, it became a tool for transformation. People from across the country wrote to share how the stories had impacted their lives. 2 years after the book's release, Michael received a call that would once again change the course of their lives. "Michael, this is the Secretary of Education. We'd like to speak with you and Professor Walter about a national project." Michael was intrigued. "What kind of project?" "We want to implement the Human Connection Center model in public schools across the country to create a generation of more socially aware young people." Michael could hardly believe what he was hearing. "Mr. Secretary, This would be revolutionary. We're talking about transforming national education, including subjects like empathy, social responsibility, and human connection. Michael immediately called Walter. "Walter, you won't believe what just happened." When Walter heard the proposal, he fell silent for a long moment. "Michael, do you realize what this means? It means our little idea could impact millions of children and young people. It means the seed we planted here in the square could grow into a national forest." The meeting with the department was scheduled for the following week. Michael, Walter, Jennifer, and Rachel traveled to Washington, D.C. to present the project. The presentation was a success. The department staff were impressed by the methodological framework they had developed, the concrete results achieved, and the potential for large-scale replication. "Professor Walter," said the secretary, "we'd like you to oversee the national implementation of the project." "Mr. Secretary, it's an honor, but I'd like to suggest something different." "What?" "I'd prefer a collective leadership. Me, Michael, Jennifer, Rachel, and others who helped build the center. I believe human connection projects should be led collaboratively." The secretary agreed. In the following months, they worked tirelessly on developing the national program. They created manuals, trained facilitators, and established partnerships with universities across different regions. Ethan, now 8 years old, watched with interest. "Dad, does this mean kids all over the United States will learn what I learned from Uncle Walter?" "Exactly, son. That's so cool. Now everyone will know that when we share what we have, there's always a little joy left over." The first pilot school was naturally opened in Miami, the school Ethan attended. "Uncle Walter," Ethan said at the inauguration, "now my classmates will have you as a teacher too." "Actually, Ethan, now I'll have all of you as my teachers. You'll teach me how to share our ideas with children." The experience at the school was extraordinary. The children embraced the program with enthusiasm. They began treating school staff with more respect, including classmates who had once been left out, and thinking of ways to help their communities. Parents noticed changes at home too. Children were more empathetic, responsible, and aware of others' needs. 6 months later, pilot schools in other cities began showing similar results. The program was officially approved for nationwide implementation. On the day of the announcement, Michael stood in the square where it all began, alongside Walter. "Walter, did you ever imagine that when you shared that piece of bread with Ethan, you were planting the seed for a national transformation?" "Michael, I wasn't thinking about national transformation. I was just following my heart, taking care of a child in need. And that's exactly what made all the difference. You didn't act for the impact it might have. You acted simply out of love." "Michael, that's the most important lesson I've learned all these years. The greatest changes don't come from grand plans or complicated strategies. They are born from simple gestures of love and compassion." At that moment, Ethan and little Walter Michael came running through the square. The baby, now 2 years old, walked quickly, trying to keep up with Ethan. "Grandpa Walter, Uncle Michael," shouted little Walter Michael. Michael smiled. The boy had started calling him uncle, and it filled him with joy. "Come here, little one," said Walter, scooping up his grandson. "Grandpa, Ethan said you're famous now, is it true?" Walter laughed. "I don't know if I'm famous, my love, but I know I have a lot of work to do." "What kind of work?" "The work of helping people be happier." "Can I help too?" "Of course you can. You already help just by existing, just by smiling, just by giving hugs." Ethan approached the group. "Uncle Walter, I have a question." "Go ahead, champ." "When I grow up and have kids, how will I teach them everything you've taught me?" Walter was moved by the question. "Ethan, you'll teach them the same way I taught you, not with words but by example, by being kind, being generous, treating everyone with respect." "But what if I forget something important?" "Ethan, you won't forget. Because these lessons don't just stay in your head, they stay in your heart, and the heart never forgets." Jennifer and Rachel arrived at the square carrying bags of snacks for everyone. "How are our revolutionaries doing?" Jennifer teased. "We're planning the next revolution," Michael replied. "What revolution?" Rachel asked. "A revolution of kindness," said Walter. "A revolution where the weapons are smiles, the ammunition is hugs, and the strategy is acts of love. Dad, you've always been poetic, Rachel said, smiling. Rachel, after everything we've been through, how could I not be poetic? Life is pure poetry. Sometimes it's sad poems, sometimes it's joyful ones, but there's always beauty. They sat on the grass in the square for a picnic. It was a beautiful scene. Two families that had become one, children playing, adults talking, a simple moment of happiness. Walter, Michael said, can I make a confession? Of course. There are still moments when I can't believe all of this is real. It feels like too much of a dream. Michael, there's a difference between dreams and reality. Dreams happen when we're asleep. This is happening while we're awake, aware, fully living each moment. You're right, this isn't a dream, this is life, real, true, full life. Ethan was playing with little Walter Michael when he had an idea. Hey, what if we made a promise? What kind of promise? Jennifer asked. A promise that we'll always meet here in this square. Every year on the day I met Uncle Walter. Michael was touched by the suggestion. Ethan, that's a beautiful idea. We could call it Connection Day, Rachel suggested. And every year we can invite new people to join, Jennifer added. So our family keeps growing, Walter finished. Everyone agreed. And so a new tradition was born, Connection Day, an annual celebration of the extended family that had emerged from the chance meeting between a desperate businessman and a generous homeless man. 5 years later, Connection Day had become a national event. Hundreds of squares across the country held similar celebrations, where people gathered to honor friendship, family, generosity, and human connection. Michael, now 48, had become one of the leading advocates for humanized education in the country. His company remained prosperous, but he had learned to balance professional success with personal fulfillment. Jennifer had become a respected educator, developing innovative teaching methodologies based on empathy and connection. She had discovered a calling she never knew she had. Ethan, now 13 years old, was known at school as the boy who never left anyone alone. He had inherited Walter's wisdom and Michael's determination. Rachel had become one of the country's most renowned architects, specializing in social projects. Every building she designed was meant to promote human connection and community well-being. Little Walter Michael, now 7, was a cheerful and generous child who already showed signs of inheriting his grandfather's wisdom. And Walter, at 68, had become a nationally respected figure. He gave lectures, wrote books, advised social projects, but always kept his humility and connection with the simplest people. On Connection Day in 2029, 5 years after the national implementation of the educational program, they gathered again in the square where it had all begun. The square was unrecognizable. It had been revitalized and now featured a commemorative plaque telling the story of the meeting between Michael and Walter. There was also a modest statue, a man in a wheelchair offering a piece of bread to a child. Walter, said Michael, looking at the statue. It feels strange to see our story turned into a monument. Michael, this isn't a monument to our story. It's a reminder that we all have the power to transform lives through simple acts of love. Hundreds of people had gathered in the square for the celebration. There were former students from the program's schools, families impacted by the center, business owners who had changed their practices, and people who simply wanted to celebrate human kindness. Ethan, now a teenager, stepped onto the small stage that had been set up. Everyone, Ethan said, 10 years ago, I got lost in this square. It was the best day of my life. The audience laughed. It was the best day because it was when I met Uncle Walter. And through him, I learned that life isn't about what we get for ourselves, but what we can give to others. Ethan looked at Walter, who was in the front row. Uncle Walter taught me that when we share what we have, there's always a little joy left over. Today, looking at all of you here, I see he was right. We shared our story, and look how much joy is left. The applause was thunderous. But the most important thing, Ethan continued, is that each of you can do the same. You can look around and see who needs a gesture of kindness. You can share what you have. You can change someone's life. When Ethan finished his speech, Walter asked to take the stage. My friends, Walter said, 10 years ago I was sitting in this square thinking my life was over. I didn't know it was actually just beginning. Today, I look at all of you and see the transformative power of love. I see how a simple gesture can multiply endlessly. I see how kindness is contagious. Walter looked at Michael, Jennifer, and Ethan. I see a family who welcome me not despite my limitations, but because of my humanity. He looked at Rachel and little Walter Michael. I see a daughter who had the courage to return and a grandson who represents hope for a better future. And I see all of you, who prove every day that the world can be a better place when we choose love over fear, generosity over selfishness, connection over isolation. The audience was visibly moved. My final message to you is simple. Don't wait for big opportunities to make a difference. The difference is made in everyday gestures. In the smile we give to the doorman, in the patience we have with a child who's learning, in the compassion we show to those going through hard times. Each of you has the power to change the world, one act of kindness at a time, one human connection at a time, one gesture of love at a time. When Walter finished speaking, something magical happened. The people in the audience began hugging one another. Strangers greeted each other. Children ran off to play together. Families approached those who were alone to include them in conversation. Michael watched the scene with tears in his eyes. "Jennifer," he said to his wife, "do you see this?" "I'm seeing the kindness revolution in action," Jennifer replied. Ethan approached his parents. "Dad, Mom, do you know the best part of all this?" "What, son?" they asked together. "This is just the beginning. Imagine what these children growing up with these values will do when they're adults." Michael smiled. His son had learned to think not just about the present, but about the future they were building. Rachel walked over with little Walter Michael in her arms. "Michael, Jennifer, Ethan," Rachel said, "you saved my family. I don't know how to thank you." "Rachel," Michael replied, "your family saved ours too. There's nothing to thank us for. We're all part of the same story." Little Walter Michael, who had been listening, asked in his childlike voice, "Grandpa Walter always says we're all one big family. Is that true?" "It's true, sweetheart," Walter answered. "All human beings are part of the same family. Sometimes we forget, but it's always true." "What about people who aren't nice? Are they part of the family too?" The child's philosophical question made everyone pause. "Especially them," Walter said. "Because when someone isn't kind, it's usually because they're going through a hard time, feeling pain, needing more love, not less." Ethan was amazed by his little cousin's wisdom. "Uncle Walter, do you think our story will inspire others to do good things?" "Ethan, our story is already inspiring. But the most important thing isn't our story. What matters is that every person writes their own story of kindness." "What do you mean?" "Every person who chooses to be kind is writing a story. Every person who decides to help instead of ignore is creating a narrative of love. The world is made of billions of these small but important stories." Michael looked around the square, seeing all those people connected, celebrating together, and understood the depth of Walter's words. "Walter," Michael said, "thank you for teaching me how to write a better story." "Michael, thank you for giving me the chance to write a different ending to mine." Jennifer stepped closer to the two men. "Do you know what I find most beautiful about all this?" "What?" they asked together. "There is no ending. It's a story that keeps being written every day, with every act of kindness, every gesture of generosity, every moment of true connection between people." Ethan, who had been listening, smiled. "So we'll never reach the end of the story?" "No, champ," Walter replied, "because the best stories are the ones that never end. They're the ones that keep living in people's hearts, inspiring new chapters, new adventures, new moments of love." And so, as the sun set over Liberty Square in Miami, as people gradually said goodbye with warm hugs and promises to meet again the next year, Michael realized his life had become exactly what it was always meant to be, a story of love, connection, and mutual transformation. Not a story that began with a businessman meeting a homeless man, but one that started when two human beings recognized each other and decided it was worth building something beautiful together. A story that would never end, because it would keep living in every child who learned about generosity, in every adult who chose compassion, in every moment someone decided to share what they had and discovered there's always a little joy left to spare. The end of the story. Now tell us what you thought of this touching journey and where you're watching from. Do you believe small gestures can truly transform entire lives? Share your honest thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartwarming stories.